Hi, my name's Maggie, and I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida, and I just recently moved here because I got married to my husband. And I grew up in the music industry. Me and my sisters had a band, and we would travel and perform together, and that's how I met my husband. And just through that, there's a lot of different things that God has delivered me from. But one of the most recent things that I've been talking about is my struggle with an eating disorder called anorexia. And being in the public eye at a young age, there's already so many issues that come with being a young woman and having to live up to this perfect image. But being in the public eye and not having a lot of control over things in my life kind of led me to have this obsession with, I could at least control the food that I was consuming. And, I had a lot of insecurities. A lot of teenage girls, I think it's a common struggle is to struggle with what they look like. And, I was flooded with insecurity, and I felt like, people only liked me because I was a performing person or because I could do something for them. And, I was like, well, people will probably like me more if I look a certain way. And those thoughts started to creep in when I was 17, and they really started to take root then. And I think that's when I first started constricting food, and it became an obsession at that point. It got worse as the years would go by. I started to lose processing in my reproductive system. My cognitive functioning stopped working as well. I was going through a lot of brain fog. I was very emotionally distressed. There was not a lot of balance anywhere in my life. And just a lot of the outside factors, with my family, with traveling, with putting myself out there on stage and not really getting filled back up because I was kind of spiritually dormant at that time, all helped the lies of the enemy just hold me down further and further. And I knew that this was not something that I should be doing. And I think the whole time, anybody who's struggling with an eating disorder, you're thinking like, oh, do I have to do this for the rest of my life? Like, is this my reality? Like, when does the cycle stop? And it didn't feel like there was an end to it. It felt like, oh, I'm just gonna be doing this until forever. And my dad would kind of check in with me because he could tell that something was off, but I think he wanted me to try and figure it out on my own and see if I could pull myself out of it. But when you're kind of that far in, you kind of need somebody to hold their hand out and like drag you out, because everything in you, no matter how much you want to stop, is fighting, and you're gonna try to cling to that instead. And so he finally pulled me aside after dinner one day, and he was like, hey, this is a problem, and I've seen it for a while, and I don't know if anybody has been honest with you, but you're dying, and I don't want to lose you. And I think that scared me because I never understood like how severe the problem was. And I was like, yeah, my body hurts, yeah, everything hurts, things aren't working right, but like at least I'll look good, right? At least people will like me. At least I'll have an identity because I will have reached that certain number or that certain size. And he really kind of like brought me back into like, oh, this is a real thing. Like, oh, this only ends in one way. Like, I'm literally starving myself, and you can't get better if you're continuing to do the thing that's killing you. And he made me agree to try this sort of like family therapy thing because I was really scared and didn't want to go to like a rehab center for people with eating disorders. And I think that scared me the most at first. And I was like, well, I have to get better because I don't want to get sent away. And I was doing it for that. And that's the only reason that I was trying to get better. And things didn't get better. And I was struggling the whole time. My mental state got a lot worse. And I was talking to my husband, who was only my friend at the time. We weren't allowed to date. And he actually told me, he's like, hey, have you talked to God about this? And I was like, I don't talk to God at all right now. Like, why would he care about this? He's probably upset with me. And he's like, well, your dad cares about you. Why would God not care about you? He's the same Father, except exponentially times more. Like, he cares about you so much more than that. And it doesn't matter how long it's been since you've talked to him, he would love to hear from you. He wants to help you through this. And so at first it was a lot of just me crying and being angry with God and saying, why won't you let me get better? Why won't you heal me? Like, being very angry, having shouting matches with God, filling up notebooks with angry letters and tears and just crying and being so frustrated. And then I got to a point where I was like, I'm gonna ask God to help me want to heal, because I know deep down I don't want to, and I'm scared of what's gonna happen when I gain healthy weight and when I look healthy again. And that, I think, terrified me the most, because I was like, well, if I ask him to give me the want to heal, I know he'll probably give me that, because that's what any father would want, is that their child is healthy again. And I knew that there wouldn't be a turn back at that point. And it was something I had to pray over a lot, because there was a lot of fear there. And as I started to work through that with God and learning how to trust God, and my mental state started to get better, it started to become easier to accept, like, hey, maybe this isn't that bad of a thing. Maybe being healthy is the better option. And my dad helped me come up with like a plan to keep me accountable. He would check my meals, and then as I started to get better and better, he started to have to check them less and less. And my body started to kind of heal itself. And it took a few years. There was times where I would relapse back into restricting behavior again and stuff. And but then it got to a point where I wasn't restricting anymore, and it was more just the mental side of things. And I felt like I would have to struggle with that for the rest of my life, because it's like, oh, well, it's just something that I deal with. And then I started talking about it online, and I wrote a song about struggling with my eating disorder, but getting through it and telling people that it's possible to recover, and that no matter how hard healing is, it's worth it. And the more I started to tell people that, the more I started to believe it myself. And this past holiday season is usually like, holiday seasons aren't very easy for me, because it's all surrounding food and everyone's eating together, and there's so many expectations that come with that. And this past year was the first time I didn't have any sort of restrictive thought of like, oh, well, you probably shouldn't eat that. Oh, well, you're gonna have to kind of balance that out later. You're gonna have to work out later. You're gonna have to not eat later to fix that. And this time it was just like, no, I've been invited back to the table, and so I'm going to spend time and commune with my family here. And there's a lot more that goes into that, and it's years of healing, years of working with God through that. But I'm at a place now where I never thought I would be, and there's freedom that I never thought I would have. And it's all thanks to my earthly father for taking that step to pull me out of it. But everything is because God, gave me the grace when I needed it, when I thought, why aren't you healing me now? He knew that I needed to come back to him first. And I would have just continued to run. No matter how many times I was healed, I would have continued to run back to that restrictive behavior if I didn't fix my heart first. And so I have everything to be grateful for because of him.